Will you pray with me? Loving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts and minds be pleasing to you, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So all through Advent, we're looking at whether or not this story really still matters. 2016, thinking about a story that happened 2,000 years ago. Does it have any bearing on our lives? And so today, as we look at the Prince of Peace, it feels like peace is further away from us than it's ever been. I see our country polarized, people at each other's throats. There seems to be all this dissension all around the world. And yet we're told that Jesus' birth will bring in this endless era of peace. The trick with that, as with all of it, is that we are God's plan. If there is to be peace, peace is going to move through us through the power of God's grace. And so if we're not peaceful, there won't be peace in this world. It starts with us. And so a couple of quick stories about this lately. I have this Facebook acquaintance, Malcolm Martinez. Malcolm's of Mexican heritage, but he was born in the United States. He lives in Chicago. And he was at the grocery store just about a week ago, and he had gotten his little basket of stuff, and he was going over, and it was about 8 people deep to get through the checkout line. And as he was walking over to get in the back, this one guy in the line kind of looked at him with stank eye, you know what I mean? And he thought, he didn't know what it was about, but so he walks to the back, waiting, and sure enough, this guy comes out of the line a little bit, turns around, and says, "Why don't you go back where you came from?" And of course, everybody in the line kind of goes. And Malcolm's in there said, "Milwaukee? I was just there for Thanksgiving." And people started kind of laughing, and some people said, "Man, just, get your stuff." And Malcolm couldn't leave well enough alone, and so he said, "Did my mom tell you to say that?" And then everybody kind of started laughing, and the guy just put down his basket and he left. And what I love about Malcolm's story is that he could have gotten really mad. I could so feel that. But he used humor to diffuse what would have been, this really tense situation that could have escalated really quickly. He could have done nothing, which I think is a lot of times what we want to do, if it make it stop, it'll stop soon. But then he might have sent the signal that was okay, or that this guy had license to keep doing that to other people. So he picked this middle way. He wasn't angry and aggressive. He didn't call the guy names, but he also didn't just do nothing. He used humor. And I think that humor may be one of the most powerful tools in our toolkit for dealing with these times when so many people are so angry. Peace is not just the absence of chaos, just like love isn't just the absence of hate. Peace is something that we have to actively cultivate and do, just like love is. Love is something you do. Well, peace is also something that we do, and we have to be intentional about it, and we start with ourselves. Have any of you guys gotten to see Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them? Some of you have? All right, some of you have. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm not going to give anything away, no spoilers. For me, it didn't have the emotional oomph that I was looking for. It wasn't that kind of emotional thing, but it was really good, unbelievably creative. It's setting up a whole bunch of other movies, and you should, if you are Harry Potter interested at all, you should go see Fantastic Beasts. But the way that comes in today is that there were 2 characters. In fact, there were characters on opposing sides. I'm going to tell you about both sides of them. On one side, there were these 2 characters who are all empathy. There's Newt Scamander, who has this amazing ability to empathize and understand creatures. Maybe not humans all the time, but creatures for sure. And then there's another character called Queenie who reads people's minds. And even though she knows what they're thinking, she still loves them and has compassion for them. So we see these characters. Newt at one point there's this rhino-style magical creature, this huge thing, and he explains that this creature, is in her mating season. And so he ends up doing this mating dance to try to calm her down that looked completely ridiculous. He was willing to make himself look really, really foolish to help this creature. And he's sort of always doing that. He always understands the creatures like that. So those two characters, Newt and Queenie, they're all empathy all the time, thinking about what does that creature or person need. Then on the other side of it, there are characters, several of them, who are not thinking about what the other needs. They're just thinking about themselves and what they expect the world to look like. And they want the whole world to conform to their expectations, and they're willing to use violence to get people to do it. And so it's the opposite thing. It's this repressive thing that causes extremism. But those two things are at point counterpoint, and it is good versus evil. So we are called to be more like Newt and Queenie, even when it makes us look kind of silly. But we are called, no matter how much we may have preferences about how the whole world should run, we are called to think about what other people are needing and to find that center of compassion for them. That's the route of peace. But I don't know about you guys, but I am just as likely, I've told you about this before. This embarrasses me to death, but it is the truth about me. When I see the guys walking along and their pants are down here, I want to pull their pants up. Now, their pants have nothing to do with me, right? It's not my pants. If they fall all the way down, it's not my problem, right? Clearly no. But yet I find myself wanting to go pull up their pants. That's what I'm talking about, that we have to kind of start thinking, okay, there's me, and then there's other people, and I don't get to control all the other people, right? You with me? But sometimes I want to put the pants, and I have to think, get over this. What is this? But we do that all the time. Even as Christians, we want the whole world to conform to what we think things should be. And there's example after example after example. But the one that comes up most this time of year is that Christians, can get all bent out of shape because at the mall or other stores, the staff say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas, and some Christians say it's a war on Christmas. Well, I heard a guy who is one of the pastors who put together the Advent Conspiracy, which I commend to you. We're talking about it on Wednesday evenings, but you can go online and find out what that's all about. But one of these pastors that put that together was saying, look, there's two stories at this time of year. There's the story of the Prince of Peace, God born among us and made one of us, and how that changed the world, and how that love continues to change us today and give us hope. And then there's another story of love, which has to do with buying things to show your love for the people in your life. And do y'all do that kind of, it's like a transactional analysis of now, okay, that's my father, so I'm supposed to spend more on him to show my love than I have to spend on this person. You know what I mean? And then if somebody gives you a gift that's like more than you were giving them, it gets awkward. It's a love story too, but it's a love story about stuff and about buying stuff and using that as a kind of a proxy for our love. So two stories. And this guy from Advent Conspiracy said, so, Merry Christmas, is that really the mall's story to tell? Maybe that's our story to tell. And if at the mall they say Happy Holidays, why does that bother us anyway? We could be saying Merry Christmas. So it's just something to think about. Again, just in case you get confused like I do, here is me, and I get to control all of that, even though I don't do a good job of it. Which is why I eat too much and all these things. You'd think I could control me, but it's more fun to control you. Pull your pants up, do this, don't do that, go to school, don't go, it's so much more fun. And then I can be righteously angry and all of that. But no, that's not the way of peace. This is my dance space, and this is your dance space. And you might dance a really different dance than me, and that's okay. So, but okay, that some of this is us, is in us. How are we going to be? Are we going to be people of empathy that are willing to make ourselves maybe look foolish, willing to put our own needs second out of compassion for the other person? Because that's what Jesus said to do. It's not easy, y'all, but that's what he said to do. Or are we going to live it a different way? Okay, so that's us. But back to the grocery line and the angry people we encounter. These days, there's anger coming at us from all directions. Or do you guys feel that? Do you feel the sense of, well, if you go online, if you look at comments on Facebook or anything, you'll start to feel it. But a woman in my neighborhood is disabled, and she has one of the little placards she can hang in her car. She has good days and she has bad days. The problem is she's got a bad heart and she's got chronic pain. Some days she uses her handicap placard and some days she doesn't. But the other day she was heading to the Walmart that's down on Berry, not too far from us, and she was just about to pull into the handicap spot, and another person zipped into that spot. And so my neighbor ended up getting out of her car and asked the woman because she didn't have any kind of handicap sticker, she said, "Ma'am, do you have a handicap placard?" And the woman told her no, but in the most colorful way possible. And just with this, and she said, "Well, here's the thing, I am handicapped and I need that spot." And then this woman told her exactly what she might need. And this just escalated, but my neighbor tried to just stay, and so she thought, okay, well, here's the thing, it's a $250 fine. I'm gonna call the police and I'm gonna take a picture of you now. And this woman said, "If you take my picture, you're going to be handicapped," and was mad and yelling. And my neighbor held her ground, and sure enough, though, the woman got in her car and she drove away. Okay, so it got resolved, but here's the thing. It wasn't with humor, right? We started with how we can use that sometimes to diffuse. This was a case where she felt like, I need to stand my ground. But she wasn't aggressive. She didn't use profanity. She didn't call names. She didn't escalate it, but she stood her ground. A friend of mine in Seattle told me about a woman that she knows who went into the bank. Seattle's like this place where they talk about inclusion all the time, but people are people, and they were at the bank, and this woman's friend was waiting in line, and she saw a man get really angry at the teller. Didn't quite know what was going on, but the teller was a black man. And so this customer started yelling and said, "You need to go back where you came from." So that same kind of thing. And the teller kind of froze, didn't know what to do. And this friend, who was back in the line, said, "That's unacceptable." And that kind of got everybody's attention, and then a manager came and got the customer and got him aside, and I don't know what happened, but the customer ends up leaving. And then another person went over to Starbucks and got a coffee for the teller, and there was this opportunity for some kind of good, some love to happen around it. But the trick was, she had to have the guts to say, "That's unacceptable." So I think if we're going to try to promote peace, and I'm sorry I'm popping like that, y'all. If we're going to try to promote peace, we have to figure out strategies that don't make us become the thing that's making the world worse, right? We need to find ways where we don't call names, you might be angry, but you don't react out of anger. We can respond from anger. Things like, "That's unacceptable," or somebody tells a joke. When I talked about diffusing with humor, I mean, obviously, it's not the kind of humor that makes fun of somebody. It's a different kind of humor. But if you hear humor at someone's expense, saying, "That's not funny," or "That's not a kind of joke to tell," something to stand up. And that may be new for a lot of us that are used to being nice, where, don't create a conflict. These times are going to be calling more and more for us to stand up, but stand up grounded in love, grounded in compassion, but strong. And that's going to be new for a lot of us. And so share your stories about how people diffuse these situations and what they're dealing with, so that we can get stronger and we can share our ideas, because we are the people of peace. We're God's only plan for the grace and the Spirit of God to move through us and to create an eternal kingdom of peace on earth. So I want to end with Wendell Berry. He's one of my favorite poets, and after he visited the Holocaust Museum with his granddaughters, he wrote this poem. He said, "Now you know the worst we humans have to know about ourselves. And I'm sorry, for I know that you'll be afraid. To those of our bodies given without pity to be burned, I know there's no answer but loving one another, even our enemies. And this is hard, but remember, when a man of war becomes a man of peace, he gives a light divine, although it's also human. When a man of peace is killed by a man of war, he gives a light. You do not have to walk in darkness. If you will have the courage for love, you may walk in the light. It'll be the light of those who have suffered for peace. It'll be your light." Will you pray with me? Holy God, give us the courage for peace. Fill us with your strength that is all love and all compassion. Check our tongues when we would speak in ways that wouldn't glorify you, but strengthen our words when we need to stand for others. Be there for us and help us to be your people of peace. And I pray this in Jesus' name, the one who taught us to pray, and I invite you to pray with me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.